Welcome to Broken Catholic, the show where I interview practicing Catholics, non-Catholics, and recovering Catholics about why the world isn't working right now, and tackle unspeakable topics that many people secretly struggle with but won't admit. See, I believe that God is in the business of transformation, so I'm here to stand for you having a transformation so big that when God is done with you, you're barely recognizable. I'm your host, your coach, your brother, Joseph Warren. I'm also a broken Catholic and former atheist, and I freely share my personal struggles of being a modern Catholic man. It's freaking hard. I don't have it all figured out. I'm a work in progress just like you, and that's okay. Today, our featured guest is Andrew, and our topic is abortion. I'm pregnant, but I don't want this baby. Now, Andrew, really quickly, tell us what it is that you do, what industry you work in, and then we'll get right into today's topic.
Hi, thank you for inviting me here. What I do is I'm CEO of a firm that does business consulting, helping companies to grow.
Cool. Excellent. And Andrew, this podcast isn't about who our guest is or their achievements in life or anything like that. It's really about what do they stand for, especially on the topic today, right? So let's get down to business. Why do you think the world isn't working right now?
Good question.
Yeah, that's why I ask it.
I think it goes all the way back to the very beginning, an original sin ultimately, but I think capitalism, as I've seen in America and the success of this country, has been rooted in capitalism itself, but the oil between the gears has always been Judeo-Christian values. And without those Judeo-Christian values as a core, capitalism does not work as well as it can or should. And that's what's made us successful as a country over the last 200 years, is that most people do the right thing even when they're not being watched and, there's no police or regulation. They do the right thing. And as a core. And so as that's extracted from society, the United States, and we get more dysfunctional as a country because now if there's not a rule and regulation telling us it's wrong, there is no moral foundation or basis for us to still do the right thing.
So what I'm hearing you say is that when we take God out of society, we take really that moral accountability out as well. And now it's kind of a free-for-all. Is that
absolutely correct? And you can't have enough rules, regulations, and police to keep us keep society in line and operating effectively.
So you don't think that the law itself can really regulate society without the presence of God?
Absolutely not. Those are just bigger guardrails to set the general directional tone, but there are 1,000 decisions each of us makes every day that all determine it. Today I heard, for example, on the radio of a pharmaceutical mixing firm that gave hepatitis to a bunch of patients, and it's because the gentleman who was running the mixing lab used chemicals and ingredients that really weren't sterile and up to code, and he was a way to make more money for their organization, and he wasn't following the rules.
So greed, man. It's ridiculous.
But morally, he would have known, I can't take a chance on poisoning people. That should have stopped him, no matter what his boss or anybody in the organization would say about go ahead and use these chemicals.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I get that, right? I'm in total agreement. You remove God and belief in God. If you don't have to answer to God, who do you have to answer to, right? Just the local municipalities? Well, what do you do when they're not there? When they're not watching, right?
Right.
Like you said, we make hundreds of decisions per day. They're not around.
Right. I think the mantra that's the code word for everything goes is don't judge me. I think that's sort of the code word for everything goes.
I get that, right? I'm okay, you're okay, we're all okay. Don't judge me, right? You got your own things. Figure yourself out.
Right.
Which sounds good.
Yeah, sounds
right on
great.
the outside, but you're saying there's no workability to that.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, because behind the scenes, no one's holding themselves accountable. Right. Nobody else is holding them accountable any longer because it's don't judge me, or I'll get offended, and then you're this type of person, right? Intolerant.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I get that. Okay, so let's get into today's topic, right? So today we're talking about abortion, right? And abortion is such a buzzword, right? So it's controversial. The second you say it, people choose a side, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like there's no 50 shades of gray when it comes to abortion, right? There's
Right.
no like middle. There's like I'm either all the way on the extreme left or the extreme right. I am 100% against abortion or I am 100% for abortion. And kind of what's showing up for you just in me sharing that. Yeah.
What's showing up is years ago when I was 18 and dating my first girlfriend. We started dating when we were 16, and
Yeah.
we were actually in the process of breaking up our relationship when we found the news that she was pregnant.
So you just to clarify, so the relationship wasn't working out. You're about to end it, and then you find out she's pregnant.
Right.
Ay. Got it. Okay, what happened?
So it was obviously extremely stressful for us at the time and nerve wracking. And I had grown up in a Catholic household, but my parents would have been in the category of uh, major holidays and things like that, as opposed to faith fully engaging all Catholic practices and doctrines. So
Well,
Catholics, but not fully engaged.
got it. What do they call that? Easter Catholics or
There you
something like
go.
that? Christmas Catholics?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
A little of that going
I
on.
get it.
So that was the backdrop as I was growing up, and so at that point upon hearing the news, obviously it was very stressful for us, and we, spent a week or two thinking about what we're going to do. We were in the process almost of breaking up, and now this occurred, and what does that mean? And though the interesting thing here's a good side note for those that those that think you can um, come, get close to but not have intercourse and still have children. Well, we did not have intercourse. We were just close, apparently, and it was enough. So it wasn't even full intercourse.
Really?
And so it was.
So
like-
just
it was
within proximity, certain members of the body were in
yes,
too close proximity,
Yeah.
and that occurred in a pregnancy.
absolutely.
Whoa.
So that was, so it was even perplexing for us.
Did that blow your mind? I mean, you were 18, 19, right?
Yeah, 18. So yeah, absolutely did. And
You're like, nobody taught me that could happen.
no, we didn't.
What the heck, man?
Absolutely. So we were, both very worried and upset.
What was going through your mind at that moment, Andrew?
Well, I think being 18 and immature
Yeah.
and self-centered and selfish,
You mean 18-year-olds do that?
we were both, kind of panicked about what that meant for our futures. We were both planning on, going to college and doing things, and now weren't planning on being together. So that just intensified our kind of dilemma, and ultimately we decided to have an abortion.
Whoa. Yeah. Was it a mutual decision? Was it more one person than the other? Was there,
It was an equal mutual decision, and we both contributed to pay for it as well. And doesn't make it right, but we both pitched in.
yeah. May I ask you, right? Because we need to go there, right? How did you come to that conclusion, to that decision together? Like, what was the conversation like? Bring us back to that moment. Because I'll tell you right now, some of our audience, they're in that moment right now. So what you share will open up some things for them, yeah? And I know it's difficult. I see you're choked up right now, so please just go there with us.
Well, I think some of it was driven by panic. What do? We don't want to tell our parents. We don't want to tell, anybody, what we're about, what we were thinking about and or the pregnancy itself. So when we were just so very young, she was maybe 9 months younger than me, and so we were, very, very young and very confused, and also very fearful about the pregnancy and the impact on the rest of our lives
Mm.
in a self-centered way.
What would you say scared you most in that moment as an 18-year-old young man? Was it the fear of the unknown of having a baby, or was it more what you were losing as far as like your plans, your schemes, as far as what your life looked like? Not that they're bad; they were probably good,
Right.
but you were gonna lose that.
Yeah, it was more about what we were going to lose, I think,
Okay.
and the kind of disapproval of, collective society
Mm.
uh, at our age. So I think so. Neither of us was ready to be an adult, or at least we didn't think we were, and we chose what we thought was the easier path.
I get it. May I ask you now, what chokes you up about that? Looking back, if you were just being fully transparent in this moment, yeah.
Uh, you're killing someone.
Yeah, I get that. Now, how do you wrestle? And I know this isn't easy, so thank you for being courageous and speaking about this. How do you wrestle with, the other viewpoint out there that you're not killing someone? Andrew. It's like, how do you wrestle with that?
Um, certainly I have every motivation and reason to like to accept that rationale, because that takes responsibility off of me that I did anything wrong. So
Mm.
it certainly is attractive to be able to say that.
Okay. Why don't you?
It's not the truth.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm asking you just to kind of stay with me in this, yeah, because this is the sticking point, right? This is the rubber meets the road, so to speak, right? You find yourself at 18 years old in a situation that you had no intention of. You actually had the opposite intention of not moving forward with this girl and exiting from that relationship, and there you find yourself in the consequence of that action, yeah?
Right.
And like what I'm hearing you say is it would be very easy to accept the societal, what's becoming almost a norm or an alternative of, hey, it's not a baby, it's not a living thing, it's scar tissue, it's nothing, and it's your whole life ahead. So what are you gonna do? Kill your life, or are you gonna just remove the piece of tissue, right?
Right.
What shows up for you in that?
Mm. Well, I think as soon as we're conceived, we are a human being. We have a soul. At that point, as the Bible says, God's already counted the hairs on our head. So, I don't think you can move away from that reality.
Hmm. Like, is that something like in your head, or is it something that like shows up in your heart? Like, it's like a knowing of like, no, that was my baby. Like,
Yeah, no, I would say it's a profound knowing,
okay,
and I would also say my girlfriend from then
hmm.
would 100% concur, which I know
that it was a baby.
that it was a baby.
Okay, so that's an important distinction. So at 18 years old, not just where Andrew is right now in his life, looking back, saying, "Hey, that was a life, right?" Um, but at 18 years old, you had the wherewithal and your girlfriend to know that was a baby and still choose.
Well, I think maybe I wasn't so clear at 18. I mean,
Okay.
I've become much more clear at over time. But at 18, I think it was our selfishness that dominated, and I think the selfishness that dominated was was blocking this case of denial where you're like, this is the, oh my gosh, we have a problem, and it was focusing on that and blocking out what morally at a gut level is right. So obviously, after this occurred, we both cried. I took her to the clinic, and afterwards we were both in the car, and we both cried, and were extremely sad.
Yeah, I get that. That sucked. The whole situation sucked. Yeah, super difficult. In that moment, as a man, in that consequence, she was wrestling with her own stuff, right?
Right.
As a girl.
Right.
And she was also putting herself at cause physically, right? Because she was the one getting the procedure.
Right.
Of the abortion. And sometimes we forget the guy, right? The father in that situation and what he's wrestling with. And I know on a lot of shows, interviews I've heard, it's a lot about the woman, the girl. And I'd like to go here today, really, talking about what was happening for you, right, as that 18-year-old man. Now, obviously, you just shared with us that you were fully present at that moment to, hey, this is a baby, this is a life. I have this knowing that this is the wrong decision. However, an even stronger thing was showing up for you was your life, your future, and you had to weigh those in the balance. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Am I saying this correctly, or how else would you say it?
I think that's reasonably accurate. I think what when I look back on it, the factors that could have swayed the decision would have been a stronger faith formation, as a child.
How do you mean that?
Reading, studying the Bible, going to church more regularly, just more time understanding God's will and the value of life and what is right and wrong. So I think more faith formation certainly could have swayed the decision significantly. And then the other component would have been, maturity, and that some of that I would say would be from a parenting perspective of more, probably more discipline and accountability, and maybe value sharing from my parents as to right and wrong, and if you ever find yourself in this situation, come to us, or those kind of things probably would have definitely could have swung the pendulum.
Yeah. Did you feel you could go to your parents with something this big, this situation at that time?
Yes and no. They're fairly open and accepting, but I think I was so struck with fear and panic at the time, as was she, that and the fact that our relationship, we were actually moving apart.
Right.
So it just further complicated that, and I wish I had been more mature and had a stronger faith.
I get that. However, you were 18, right? And sometimes we beat ourselves down really hard, don't we? Yeah, and we do it for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you brought peace to that decision when you were 18, your 18-year-old self, looking back on it now? Or is it still an open wound?
Well, I think I went down the river of denial, for a decade or two.
We all do that, sure.
Where you just try to not think about it and push it out of your mind. And, it's it was a blip in my life. I didn't, we made a mistake, etc. But you just try to keep it out of your mind and deny it. Um, Eventually, I reconnected with my girlfriend from that
Mm.
time, and so we both had open conversations about our feelings about
Really?
that time.
How many years later was this? About approximate
20.
20 years later. And that conversation came up. Huh. What occurs for you in that?
She admitted that she was very, still very, upset about it and sad about it, and she's all married and has children, but she felt guilty and felt that some of the problems she was having with one of her children now was related, sort of like payback
Hmm.
for this sin she had committed.
Mm.
So I tried to assure her that God is loving and forgiving. So I didn't believe there was, any curse, if you will,
Mm.
um, and encouraged her to ask for forgiveness and to go to confession, which she hadn't done. And I highly encouraged her to do that.
Mm.
And not to do that in the silence of her own home, but to go see a priest and be absolved. As Peter, is the rock the church was built on.
Why do you think that was important to say to her rather than her just in the silence of her own home asking God for forgiveness?
I think it's important to be able to. I think it's very important for people to be able to confess and express, their sins, or, in, to God in this case, through the channel of a priest, so that they can, get absolution and maybe get closure on it in a way that is not possible, I think, just by yourself. So each of us can do very sinful or shameful things, and other people have other issues or addictions, etc. And if you go in a room and express those sins to yourself, you're not taking any risk, and you're not
Mm.
fully taking that issue, whatever it might be, and putting it on display
Mm.
for getting it off of your chest. So I think that expression, probably getting it off of your chest, goes deeper. That you do have to literally take it out of you,
Mm.
and share that, with the vicar of Christ, as we see, every the Pope and every priest, that they can help you move past it, and help you in that process of forgiveness of yourself.
Yeah. How long did it take you, if I may ask, to forgive yourself?
Probably 20 years.
Wow. I get that. What was the deciding moment, or what happened that finally allowed you to forgive yourself in that?
I got married at 30, and my wife and I had decided to, right from the get-go, we decided what kind of life we wanted to lead as we were maturing, and said, we want to be going to church every Sunday. We want to, live out the Catholic faith fully, not just partially or the parts we liked, like a self-serve menu where you can pick. And so
The buffet Catholics.
right. So
Yeah, yeah.
consciously chose that this is our path. We choose our path, and we're both going to walk it. And so we both became closer to the church and closer to Christ. And one of the things I did is I read the Bible cover to cover one year. And so it just was doing a lot of things to work on my own faith formation in anticipation of my two children, coming into our lives. And I wanted to be a good father and make sure I did a good job of faith formation, even though I felt, I didn't get maybe fully rounded in my youth. I wanted to make sure they had an advantage of that, and we're well equipped for big life decisions.
Yeah, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. You know, man, this subject matter is it's tough. It's tough to wrestle with. It has so many variables. No two situations are the same, right?
Absolutely not. What the few things, several things that helped me to work through this, and and my former girlfriend to work through this, where confession number one, two was we put together a plaque, and there are cemeteries around the country that will have an abortion area within the cemetery where they'll have large walls like you would see the Vietnam Wall, but those you can create a plaque to your unborn child.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
So our child was a boy.
Did you give him a name?
Yeah, so we named him and put a quote that was meaningful to us, and put him on the plaque. And so that was also an important release for us
Yeah.
to recognize him.
Yeah.
So that was very important. So we did that, and then beyond that was probably the conversation between the two of us, because for years she thought she was anguishing about it, and that I probably had forgotten and had long ago moved on, and it was a non-issue, and she was just in her own misery about what had occurred.
So she felt alone in it. Sounds like.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't the case at all, was it?
No, we're both in the same place and just didn't really know it.
And then 20 years later.
So we still have a healthy relationship. We're both married and have children and are happily married and all that. But we have a, unique relationship from a shared sorrow.
Yeah, I get that, right? You both went through a tragedy together. Very traumatic, for sure. Would you mind sharing the quote that you put on the plaque for your son? Do you remember?
It was, I don't, have it right with me, but it was basically a quote that, in God's hands, and we gave him a good name that we wrestled over for a month or two, and put it all together, and it made it a kind of official and formal, and it helped give us peace that he'll be remembered.
Yeah. As a Christian, do you believe that you will get to meet him one day in heaven?
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. That could be a pretty amazing moment.
Absolutely. So I have gone on to have several other children as well, and so it's certainly informed our faith and our teaching the faith and trying to build a strong moral foundation and not be ambiguous as to what's morally wrong and morally right.
Like you had growing up, right?
Right. So I have a bumper sticker in my office. It says, save all the unborn women. Which just reminds me of 50% of the abortions that are women that never see the light of day. So I would think that might be a really serious feminist issue, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think sometimes we get so caught up on the parents that we don't really speak about the child, right? And what I really appreciate and acknowledge you for today, Andrew, is shedding light and acknowledging your son.
Thank you. It's people an abortion is not necessarily the easy way out.
How so? How do you mean that?
It may feel convenient or expedient or fast or to take off the immediate pressure,
Mm.
but you, just like someone coming back from a war, you're very likely to have post-traumatic stress from the event, whether you want to acknowledge it consciously or not, or you may be in denial as to that what you actually did, that it was only tissue and it really wasn't a life or a soul.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people that choose to live in the state of denial because reality can really suck.
Big time.
So I think that's the cost, true cost of an abortion. I think is unrecognized. I do some charity work for another country from a heritage perspective. So I do some charity work overseas and given for adopted children and orphan children, etc. And in the process of that, a number of years back, I met a lady that was doing work overseas, and she was with an organization that would bring this students to the United States, and it sounded like a really good program. And then I found out they were affiliated. Some of their support was coming from Planned Parenthood, and I was like, absolutely not. I couldn't dare expose these students to an organization like that. So that was really in terms of my having clear values and saying, I can't have any part, in encouraging that kind of behavior or propagating the falsehood that it's only, it's only flesh and it's not a human life and a soul.
Mm.
So I think that is really important for anybody struggling, is to realize it is a human being. They have a soul, whether they're 1 day old or 7 months old, and that needs to be taken into serious account. And in retrospect, had we had the child, there's no question we could have figured it out
Mm.
and made it work. And I would have had an adult son right now, and I think in the end of the day, it would have been it certainly would have been the right choice, and the process would have probably forced us to grow up faster than maybe we like, but that's not all bad.
No, it's not, right? So if you're listening right now to Andrew share his story about he and his girlfriend at 18 years old being faced with a very difficult situation due to a decision, right? And there was a consequence. And what I find fascinating is that intercourse didn't even fully happen, and a baby was conceived, new life, a gift from God. And 20 years later, he's wrestling with that decision. His girlfriend, who he's no longer with, is wrestling with the decision. And I think what he's really saying to you right now, if you're in that situation or you ever find yourself in that situation, don't be so quick to react to the fear, to the pain, to the unknown, to the scariness, because that choice will affect the rest of your life, or at least, in Andrew's case, the next 20 years of your life. What would you like to add to that, Andrew? Yeah.
I think you summarized it very nicely. I think it's something you have to understand, that a baby in the womb is a human life, and that's where it all starts. And so, preserve a life. Find a way. I know that if we had decided to have the child, I know both sides of the family would have supported us in whatever means necessary. At the end of the day, no one would have pulled out a shotgun. It wouldn't have been fatal, and we would have found a way to make it work. And we probably would have, it certainly may have impacted our life course, but I think the positives of it would have way outweighed the negatives of it in terms of uh, how we viewed life, how we move forward, and our ability to grow up, be adults. So I think it would have been, in the net, it would have been a very positive thing to do.
Yeah.
Not easy, but very positive and the right choice.
I get that. And Andrew, I really appreciate that you've gone here, right, and sharing your story, because you're giving a voice today in this show to all the men out there that find themselves in this situation. Some men, some boys, right, in that situation don't always get a say in that, and the girl runs and makes the decision on her own, and they lose their son or daughter, and they didn't get a say in it. However, they do still have to live with that pain, that loss, that traumatic event that happened in their life, and that again could affect the next 10 to 20 years of their life, and they didn't even get to choose it. And that's very powerful. So I really, again, I acknowledge you for giving a voice to the guys out there. However, I want to take a minute and just give a voice to the girls. If you're a young lady and you find yourself in that situation again now or in the future, listen, I know many girls, and I've dated several girls that had abortions earlier in their life. And I could tell you this. Whoever tells you that it does not affect your future, they're lying. I have spent time with these girls, right? I've dated it. That decision back then affected our relationship now. They still had this open wound, this scar. It was so real. And if it wasn't a real life, a real baby, if it really was just a tissue or something like that, then they wouldn't have this feeling of loss, this deep wound within their heart, right? Because you don't have that wound when you get a tattoo removed, or you get your finger cut, or you lose a pinky or something like that, right? When you lose a piece of your anatomy, a piece of tissue, your heart's not impacted. Just the tissue is, right? So why, and I say sit with this question, wrestle with this, why is it then that in Andrew's case, in his girlfriend's case, in all the girls that I've dated, all the girls that I'm friends with, why is it that their heart was wounded as well? And it was undeniable. You could say till you blew in the face to them, oh, it wasn't a living baby.
Yeah.
But they know different. And they go, oh, no, that was my son. That was my daughter. And I feel their loss deep in my soul. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. And I think ultimately everyone, if they are completely honest with themselves in their quietest moments alone, will acknowledge that a baby in the womb is a life on their own. They may not want to publicly acknowledge it. They may be in a state of denial, but it really is a human life. And, that's just as people look back upon the Holocaust and all those senseless deaths in World War II and other tragic events through history, what we're doing in the United States by aborting roughly 1 million babies a year, is a utter grotesque, travesty for a civilized society.
And thank you. And I would also add, right, to this, Andrew, to your point, right, we're aborting 1 million plus babies a year. Each of those has the potentiality to be the next Einstein, right? So even if you don't want to come at this from a biblical standpoint, a morality standpoint, or you don't believe in God, you're agnostic, you're atheist, whatever, right? That's okay. That's fine, right? There's no judgment here. We're having a conversation without the labels. That's what we do on Broken Catholic. However, I want you to really sit with this, right? Where we can agree, where we can find commonality is that what are we losing as a society if we're killing off 1 million plus new persons per year, just in our country?
Yeah.
What are we losing? How are we not progressing? If progress is your thing, it's all about technological progress and, we're seeking perfect knowledge and all that other stuff, right? Fine, then wrestle with this. Because how do you sit with that and justify killing off 1 million new lives? You could call it tissue. However, it's scientifically proven that if you don't touch that tissue, it will generate into a new life. No one can deny that. You would be denying science itself. So wrestle with that. What do you want to share, Andrew?
We've done a good job of society of focusing on saving the whales and saving the climate and saving all kinds of things. I hope collectively we choose to save lives. That would be a wondrous thing. And if you have gone through an abortion, never forget that, no, God will forgive you for anything. He will forgive you for anything you could possibly do in your entire life. You have to ask for forgiveness, but you can be forgiven. And it doesn't make the pain go away, but it makes it tolerable.
Thank you for going there. And I'd like to just piggyback with that and add there are 3 people to forgive when you wrestle with this. 3 people. First, right? Where's forgiveness needed? You have to literally ask God for forgiveness. The creator of the universe who gave a new life. Whether you're a girl, he put it in your body. Whether you're a boy, he put it in your seed. Right? That created that new life. So you have to go to the creator, humble yourself and say, I'm sorry. I messed up. I was 18. I didn't know. I didn't have the formation. He just wants you to go there, right? To share where you messed up. He already knows what you're wrestling with. He's a father, God the Father. He doesn't want you to go through it alone. That's the first thing. He doesn't want to condemn you and chastise you. You do enough of that on your own, don't you? The world does that to us. We get that. He wants to love and embrace you, the prodigal son, right? Coming home to the father. The prodigal daughter coming home to the father, saying, I messed up, Father. I messed up. I made a poor decision. I chose me over the life, right? So that's the first person. Go to God the Father, ask for forgiveness. Second person, after the Father forgives you, God forgives you, who do you have to forgive?
Yourself?
Yourself. You got it, Andrew. You got to forgive yourself. So many of you, you'll go, as Catholics, I could speak on this. You go to confession. You ask God for forgiveness for whatever the sin is, whatever the mess up is. First off, admit you're broken. We all mess up. Get over your pride, right? You ask for forgiveness, and then you come out of the confessional and have the audacity to take back the sin with you and not leave it with God. Who the freak do you think you are? You get that, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, don't take it back. It no longer belongs to you. God takes it. It's his now. And he promises in Scripture that he throws it into the deepest seas of the ocean, never to be seen from again, which means he actually forgets it. How amazing is God, right? That's a loving Father. He doesn't hold it against you. Hey, remember when you were 18? He doesn't do that, right? He wants to transform you. So that's the second person. Forgive yourself. The third person. Whoever you were in that relationship with, you need to ask them for forgiveness for your part in the decision, even if it was mutual, and especially if you decided without them. You need to ask them for forgiveness. Hey, I took your baby, and I did it out of my own desire for what I felt I was going to lose in my life. Right? Fight or flight. Fear. There's 2 driving emotions, right, Andrew, in life, in humanity. We either do things, we operate from fear, or we operate from love. The 2 really don't coexist ever.
True.
And I think in this situation, what shows up, at 18 years old, understandably, without the knowledge, the formation, the support system, and that fear, we choose, right? And it's really difficult to choose love in those moments, right? And then I would just add before you speak, because I see you have something to say, There is a fourth. I stand corrected. There is a fourth. You must ask the baby, your son or daughter, for forgiveness. I chose me. I chose my life over you. And that's just real. Go ahead. What shows up?
No, well said. Well said. No, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult decision, and I think what parents can do if they're for their children is to make sure you minimize the gray areas between right and wrong when you're raising them, so they understand there really is a right and wrong, and everything isn't fluid. There are clear delineations and things that are appropriate or inappropriate, and also if they do have a crisis such as this or others, that you find some way to make sure they always have a escape valve or safety valve. So one of the things that I said to my daughter when she was growing up was that we had a little game we played, and I said when she was even 4 or 5 years old and 6 years old, and I'd be like, well, I'm like, I would love you no matter what you did. I would love you if you stole some candy. I would love you if you killed somebody. I would love you. And I would go through all of these bad things and say, no matter what, I would still love you. If you were in jail, I would still love you.
Wow.
And that is how God loves us.
That's exactly it. I think you just nailed that spot on, right? You're listening to this show, this podcast, Broken Catholic, where I interview other broken Catholics, non-Catholics, atheists, just like myself, right? We're all broken. The point is this, right? We're human. We make human decisions, which in themselves are broken decisions. That's why we need a Savior. That's why we need God. We have to humble ourselves and go to Him immediately when we mess up and just say, I made a poor choice. I hurt someone. I chose myself over someone else, whatever that shows up like. And just surrender to His will. Go ahead.
I think your comment there regarding humbling yourself is a key component of it.
How so?
I think many of us, as we grow up and we're successful in our education or work or etc., we like to take control, like to take full control, like to take ultimate control, that we can judge right or wrong, make all the decisions in our lives. And it's a form of arrogance, and so I think some individuals may not, or may pull away from the church because they don't want to believe in 100% of the doctrine. They want to take the 50% they like and things like that. And what I've found over life is that in even elements that I didn't believe so much when I was young and said, oh, I just don't think those three are quite on the mark. Over time, God has straightened me out.
So you matured, right?
And they became more and more apparent that His wisdom is far beyond my wisdom. And so one by one, He's broken those walls down and showed me the light.
Yeah. And
a slow student as I was.
Hey, listen, I'm with you, man. Like I drive through life with the emergency brake on, okay? That's just lots of friction there, to say the least. So you touch on a really important matter here, Andrew, and I really want to go here for a second. You talked about really kind of touching on the parents' role in this and the beautiful game that you did with your daughter. No matter what you do, sweetheart, I will always forgive you as your father. And I think you're really echoing the words of God the Father. No matter what you do, what you've done, He's saying to you, I will always forgive you. No matter what. I will turn your mess into your message, right? I will turn your brokenness into your beauty. That's what He wants to do. He wants to transform you. So regardless of what you've done, run back to your Father so that He can heal you, bring you peace, right? And forgive and restore you. That's the key, just like He did with the prodigal son. Now, here's the point I wanted to make on that. Parents. Listen, I don't care what label you want to identify with. You're Catholic, you're Christian, you're Protestant, you're atheist, you're agnostic, whatever. I don't care. You're a parent. And if you're a parent, you have a son or a daughter who you say you love. And when they mess up and they make poor decisions just like you did when you were young, darn it, you need to stand for them and not in opposition to them. And I think that is critical. They're wrestling at that young age, just like Andrew and his girlfriend did. They're wrestling with their own fears, their own struggles, their own loss, their own anxiety, their own trauma. Do not add to it. That is not your right as a parent. Your right as a parent, your obligation as a parent, is to stand for your son or daughter and to support them and not judge them. That doesn't mean you can't correct them. Correct them, that's fine. But bring them where they need to go. Bring them back to God. Restore them. Show them how to get healed in the decision. Healed from the consequences. Show them that you're with them for those consequences. You'll be there with them. They're not abandoned. They're not alone. That is key to everything as a parent. That's love.
Absolutely.
What shows up for you?
God will never, ever, ever give up on you. Ever. Even if you give up on him. So
I've done that.
Go back to him. He's been waiting.
Yeah. Anything you want to share with our parents out there? I just laid a smackdown.
When it comes to most people, not all, obviously, no one is perfect. So therefore, none of our parents are perfect, and so we can all reflect back and woulda, coulda, shoulda, and things we wish we had gotten or needed, maybe whether it be intellectually, emotionally, or discipline, or et cetera, et cetera. And so we all have to find a way to, love and forgive our, parents, and thank our parents, as appropriate in different facets of, our experience growing up. And ultimately know that, we're accountable. I'm accountable for everything that happens in my life. And so no matter how good or how bad things go, there's no one to blame but yourself at the end of the day. And so to take that ownership and that accountability, and in that process, I was very passionate, adamant, my own mini crusade in raising my children is to make sure I really laid a strong foundation and giving them what they need, both in faith formation, in terms of discipline, in terms of love and openness, and in the life experience, so that when they turned 18, they had many, many doors open in front of them. And even if tragedy or poor decisions were to befall them, they would be equipped to increase their odds of making the right decisions for themselves long term. And so I think that is, crucial, because our future is our children for this country and for this world. And so the more we can bless them with the, with the attention and the investment they need to come out properly, the better the future is. And so my children are both, I would consider, extremely successful. And I think a lot of that was the dedication my wife and I put into their upbringing and the investment we made.
Yeah. So if you're hearing Andrew right now, what he's sharing is stand for your children. Take a stand for them, right? That's key. No matter what they do. You made your own mistakes too. Stand for your children. What's also showing up for me, boys, you make a decision out there, right? You impregnate a girl. You take responsibility for that. That's part of being a man. And I don't care if you're still a boy, right? It's time to man up. And if you chose that, then guess what? You're going to grow faster. And that's the choice you made, right? But no more of this irresponsibility. Take responsibility for yourself. I really appreciate what Andrew's saying right now. Every choice in life, there are consequences, right? There's pros and cons to everything. And one of the reasons that shows up for me, Andrew, why the world isn't working right now, it's people not taking responsibility for their behaviors, right? And I want to stand for a world where it works, right? A world that works, right? And that starts with you and I, that includes me, right? Standing and taking responsibility for our own decisions in that. So, Andrew, we're about to enter the confession round, Okay, so this is a little lighthearted. This is fun. This is playful. I'm going to ask you 12 quick fire questions, and you'll have 3 seconds to answer each. First thing that comes to you. Are you ready?
I think so.
Awesome. I love when I see the deer in the headlights look like I have no idea what's coming, but that's cool. All right, what's your favorite thing about being an adult?
Martinis.
Best answer ever. What's your least favorite thing about being an adult?
Oh, having to pay the bills.
Got it. What secret fear do you have about people?
Secret?
Secret fear inside.
Oh, secret fear.
Yeah, that you have about people.
They don't like me?
Got it. If you could be anyone for fun for 7 days, anyone in the world, who would you trade places with?
Well, let's see. I think I'd have to go with I think Richard Branson. He seems to enjoy his life.
Ah, the Playboy billionaire. Who wouldn't want that as a man? What do you wish you were better at?
There's so many things, I'm not sure where to start on that one.
What would be the first one that comes to you? Go.
Probably better, more courageous in difficult situations.
Got it. What dream are you scared of pursuing?
Love photography. Passionate about that.
Nice. What makes you smile more than anything?
Quality time with the family.
Cool. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A landscape architect.
Nice. If you had the power to remove any one form of suffering in the world, what would it be?
I think our topic today on regarding abortions would be the one.
Got that. Imagine sometime in the distant future, and there you are standing in front of your tombstone. Read to us what it says on it.
Here lies a man who lived courageously and faithfully and made the world a better place.
Excellent. When you die, what would you like to hear God say when you walk through the pearly gates, Andrew?
Well done, my faithful servant.
Awesome. And final question. If you could come back to life and tell your family and friends only one piece of advice, what would you say to them?
After I passed?
Yeah. One piece of advice.
Probably just appear as a ghost and say, boo.
Wow. Got it. I see that playful side of you coming out there. Okay, Andrew, what's the best way for listeners to get in touch with you if you wanted them to or not? You could pass, whatever you like.
Via your podcast.
Gotcha. Excellent. Andrew, thanks for joining us today, and I wish you the love, forgiveness, and transformation of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Friends, I'm Joseph Warren, and you were made for greatness. Head over to brokencatholic.com to learn how to stop being a wuss and start being a winner. Have a blessed day, and remember that God the Father loves you, He's fascinated by you, and He wants to show you His awesome plan for your life. Now go spend quiet time with Him, and I'll see you on the next show.